yeah, it's basically just like fuck negativity. You know what I mean? Like you have a choice. You can either choose to be negative or positive. There's just people everywhere. There's traffic going everywhere. There's no rules of the road. There's live animals at the side of the street that you can pick out and have for your dinner. It was just like mad. Like, you know, even if someone says, "Oh, you're amazing," like you're great, like that's good. But like you can also like listen to that too much and let it get in your head, and then you think you're better than you are.
Welcome to PnP, the Partners in Positivity podcast, where
Aisling Burnett
and myself, Sarah Harty, warriors of EBP, SBP, DHBs, that's emotionally bulletproof, spiritually bulletproof, divine human beings, aim to wake up and shake up the nation through positivity, humour and shared wisdom.
Before we get stuck into another awesome episode, we just want to let you know that we have a donation page if you wish to support the podcast and help us to continue providing more amazing episodes for you. If you want to Google Partners in Positivity, you'll find our Buzzsprout site, and on there you can find a support button. You can click on that and support to your heart's content, whether it's a one-time donation or a monthly subscription. We really appreciate all the donations that we get. Thanks so much. Enjoy the episode.
Today we have our first official podcast with the one and only Ryan's Republic. Aisling, what have you got to say to Ryan?
Ryan, I just want to say thanks so much for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me.
I mean, history is not only being read, it's also being written right now.
I think it could be.
So, first question really is, what is Ryan's story? Where did Ryan's Republic come from? And can you just give me a bit of a background about yourself?
Yeah, definitely. So my name is Ryan. I'm from Limerick. Just recently moved to Dublin. Ryan's Republic is kind of my brand, my Instagram page. And that started probably about 2.5 years ago. 2.5 years ago, I think it was in 2017. And it didn't actually start out as Ryan's Republic at all. It was just my name, Ryan Morrissey 93 at whatever it was on Instagram. And so it basically started off, my whole kind of brand or blog or whatever we want to call it, is I was into fashion at the time, men's fashion, style, that type of thing. And so kind of wanted to get into the Instagram space, start putting out content. And it started, I was actually working with a couple of guys in Toronto, in Canada. That's where it all started. And we were out one Friday night. And they were like, "Oh, we're going for a photo shoot tomorrow." And we were absolutely locked at the time. A couple of beers after work on a Friday. And I was like, "Oh, you're photographers?" And they're like, "Yeah, we're photographers. Like, we go out and shoot stuff on the weekend." And I was like, "Oh, that's mad." Like, I was like, I'd love to kind of get into that space. I'd love to get involved with like Instagram and start putting out content. They're like, fuck it, let's come along and see what we can do. Like, so I woke up the next morning absolutely hungover as shit, and then I was like, oh, I have to go meet the lads. So I got together a bunch of clothes and we headed off and started doing a photo shoot. And then I just started putting content online, and that was kind of the start of it. And then it kind of continued on and started doing my own photo shoots. Then I guess for about the next year and a half, it was mainly fashion, my brand, that it was focused on. And then I did a little bit of traveling last year. I've been traveling probably for the most part of the last 3 years. So it moved a little bit from fashion to travel, and now I'm interested in coffee, so that's kind of part of it as well. But yeah, it's basically just an Instagram page that I kind of put out the content that I'm interested in, really. So
Wow.
Class.
yeah. And positivity. I forgot to mention, I'd like to consider myself a positive person. So I guess that's why I've had the privilege of being the first person on this podcast. So
Yeah, for sure. So tell me a bit about that positivity journey and how that started.
yeah, so I mean, I'd probably say I've always been kind of a positive person. I've just always kind of been like that. But I guess it's probably more so from when I started traveling. So I had 2 years in Canada and a year in Australia. But when I first moved to Canada, I think, it can be tough. Like, you're getting set up in a new country and all this and that. And, it's easy to look at the negatives when you're in a bad situation, you're trying to get a job, you're trying to get an apartment, it's stressful, it's this and it's that. And then kind of marry that with the whole kind of putting myself out there online, like creating a brand for myself. Obviously, people see that and they might have certain opinions of you, and like you put up pictures of yourself and you look like a narcissist, and regardless of what it is. So I think it's always just been that kind of made me, I guess, a little bit more just like look at the positive side of things rather than the negative, because there's always going to be negatives if you want to look for them, but like for me it's just like regardless of what's going on, and I know at the moment we've got the whole coronavirus, it's like like there's a lot of negativity, but like if you can choose to be positive then you should be. So
And Ryan, I just had a look at your Instagram earlier today, and I had to watch again the brilliant, is it IGTV broadcast you have about fuck negativity 101.
Yeah.
And I really can see that you're a complete stand for people not to tolerate like low level energy.
Yeah.
How do you block that or not absorb energy around you?
I don't know, it's a tricky one to answer, like, because it's like I just have that. I don't know how to give it to someone else, if that makes sense. I think it probably come through a mixture of like putting myself out there, not just staying in my comfort zone. Like that would probably come from the fact that I've moved countries a couple of times now. Confidence comes from that, and then obviously just like when you're confident, you're like, I'm not gonna stand for like the bullshit of people being around you or shitty situations or negative vibes or anything like that. So I think that's kind of where it came from. But yeah, like there's like, I just always try and distance myself. If I find myself in a situation where it's anyway negative, like whether that's people, whether that's a job, anything at all, like I'm just like, nah, I'm done. Like, because even though I can black it out and it doesn't, I wouldn't let it affect me, I still just don't want to be around that, because eventually it could bring you down or it could get you, regardless of how confident and strong and what kind of a shield you have around you, it doesn't matter. Like, so I think that's very hard to say how you can give that to someone else, because I think it's a very personal thing. But I mean, ultimately it's about just like standing up for what you want and what you believe in. And if that's not, if that's positivity, then you just have to stick to it. Like,
so you physically remove yourself from situations or not associate with people.
Intentionally, maybe. And I think it, like, not only that, but it's also like, I guess, the type of content that you consume as well. So it's also like physically taking yourself out of that, but it's also like getting information in your head about how you can deal with that. Like I follow some people online, Gary Vaynerchuk is probably one of them, who's big on that, like any type of negative situations, whether it's your parents or whatever it is, and they're saying, you should do this instead of doing that, and it's not what you want to do. It's just like just distance yourself, like get out of that situation, as tough as it can be to do that. Like, so it's like, get yourself out of a situation if you can, but also put good information in your head that kind of builds up that confidence.
So what would you say is the message that you want to deliver to the world?
I think it is in the title of that IGTV that I put out sometime last year that I can barely even remember. It was in the middle of my time in Brisbane. But yeah, it's basically just like fuck negativity. You know what I mean? Like there's... You have a choice. You can either choose to be negative or positive. It's a choice, really. You know what I mean? So I think I just always see myself as a glass half full kind of person, regardless of how shit the situation that you face. Like, there's always something that you could say, right, at least I learned this from that situation, or at least next time that won't happen because I've been through this now and I've learned a lesson from it. So even though it can be a bad thing, you just have to try and see the good in things. So yeah, it's like fuck negativity.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So it's really about learning your lessons, but also that you have a choice whether to be around negative or positive and choose, what way you're going to be yourself. And I just seen a brilliant quote as well on Ryan's Republic, and it was, if you want big things in life, you better get used to taking big risks.
Yeah.
Would you have seen Ryan's Republic as a risk? Like, was it a hurdle you had to jump, or was this easy breezy to get set up? Because I can see online you have maybe over 2,000 followers. Like, that's really impressive.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not easy to actually do it. It's the easy part is getting the content and putting it on the internet. I guess the part that you have, like the hurdle that you have to get over is like people's opinions of that, because when I started putting it out, like it was just, like when I first started putting out content that I wanted to put out. So pictures of myself, like photo shoots and men's fashion and stuff like that. Like I had probably like 400 followers or something like that. So there was a very small group of people, which was mainly family and friends. And then all of a sudden you go from just posting regular pictures of just like out and about, here's my dinner, here's where I am today, to now, oh, here's me in this like nice outfit, and you know, here's what this outfit means and stuff like that. So I think that's the harder part than the actual like getting the content or making the content. So I think that in itself, I didn't find it hard to do, because I just said like, fuck it, what's the worst that can happen? People talk about you or make a joke that, oh, do you see your man on Instagram, who does he think he is, kind of a thing. So yeah, it wasn't so much of a hurdle. Like it was just something that you have to just like, if you're going to do that, I think you have to have the confidence to just block out what everyone else thinks, regardless of whether it's good or bad. You know, even if someone says, oh, you're amazing, like you're great, like that's good, but like you can also like listen to that too much and let it get in your head, and then you think you're better than you are. And then on the other hand, someone could say, oh, who the fuck does your man think he is? Like, look at the state of him putting up these pictures online. And if you listen to that too much, it can bring you down. So I think it's about like, regardless of whether the feedback is good or bad, it's just you have to believe in what you're doing is what you want to do, and then everything else will kind of fall into place after that.
Yeah, I think that reminds me of the quote, like, don't get too attached to their criticism or their flattery.
Yeah.
I really like that.
Yeah,
so.
and like I mentioned Gary Vee, like I've listened to him now for years, and I saw him live last year in Brisbane.
Yeah.
And like I'm a big fan, but like he says something along those lines, like don't listen to the compliments, and don't listen to the insults, you know, like just be in the middle and be in your own head. It doesn't matter whether it's good or bad, like, you know what I mean.
That's really powerful. So you're saying about Gary Vee, so you went to one of his events, yeah?
Yeah.
Like, so you listen to audios, and you've been to a couple of events, or just one event?
It was just that event, yeah. Like it wasn't just him, there was multiple other people. Like it was kind of like a business conference, but there was a couple of like motivational type speakers and himself, and there was a couple of other lads as well that were really good. But yeah, it's only been kind of the one event that I went to.
Okay, so I'm just interested to know, like, what did you get from that event, and do you think it's something you would recommend to people, or do you think like maybe one event a year is good for you, or?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. The only reason I went to that event was to see him. I said, look, I've never seen him live. I've literally watched his videos every day of the week. I was like, let's go. The tickets were like $50 or something like that. It was in Brisbane. And like it was mainly a business conference, so like a lot of it wasn't relevant, but like there was about 2 to 3 speakers. Him, have you heard of Grant Cardone? Yeah, so he's another like slightly different angle on it. He's much more kind of aggressive and in your face and make money and get rich and all that kind of stuff. But I'd followed him for a couple of years as well, like not as much as Gary Vee. He also spoke at it, and then another guy called Corwin Ray, who's actually an Australian who I'd never even heard of. But he's kind of like a mix of the two. He's like very much into entrepreneurship, but a lot more mindset and like positivity and mental health and that type of thing. And he was brilliant. But like, yeah, I mean, I think people can spend a lot of money on these events and like kind of just go from one event to the next and the next and the next. And it's like, you know, like you have to look at what you're getting from these events, and you know, like how much motivation should someone need if they keep needing to go see these motivational speakers. I mean, at some point, you know, it has to kind of come from inside. I get it that you want to see kind of people who are like that and have that type of energy. But for me, I personally wouldn't be interested in like going to those events all of the time. I think it depends on who the speakers are and what they can actually add to your kind of mindset or whatever.
Amazing. So, are you much into reading, or do you prefer to listen?
Kind of a bit of both. I would have always just read books and not too much. Like in the last probably 2 years, I've started reading a little bit more. Then I started listening to audiobooks for a little bit, then I went back to reading, and I've kind of just stopped now for whatever reason. But yeah, like I generally prefer to have a physical book. I don't know, there's just something about having a book. Reading, I don't know, it's just a little bit different. But on the same token, then audiobooks are great as well. Like it's a lot easier. It's on your phone. It's, you know what I mean. And you'll generally be able to get through it a lot quicker than if you're reading something. So yeah, both, to answer your question.
And you enjoy a nice cup of coffee with the book?
I do. Yeah. Coffee is definitely my thing, and it's something that I've, I guess, kind of introduced into my brand, and I talk about a little bit more on my Instagram channel a bit now. But again, it's not something I know a huge amount about. Like, so you know, people see me on Instagram and they see me every day making coffee, and they think like that I'm some kind of expert. But like, I mean, God only knows what I'm doing. Like, you know what I mean? But it's just something that, again, that's just interests me. So yeah, a cup of coffee and a good book. What more could you ask for?
Exactly, I'd be the same as that. And in terms of the amount you consume in coffee, and I know you're bouncing around town on a weekend and trying out different coffee shops all the time, and that's some of the, I suppose, content of your Instagram page. But would you see like drinking coffee as a spiritual practice for yourself?
I don't really. I mean, for me, I see, like, obviously, like, people always message me on Instagram, they're like, Jesus, you drink so much coffee. But I'm like, some days I might have 2 or 3 cups of coffee. Usually would never be more than 3 cups. But then I could go for a day or 2 days without drinking it. Like, I don't necessarily need it. I just really enjoy it. And it's typically, like, for me, like, going out to a coffee shop is much more about like the experience of like going into a new shop and seeing what that's about, tasting the coffee more so than, oh Jesus, I need coffee, like I need to have it. So for me, like, I just see it as like something that I enjoy, but also not something that I'm dependent on in any way, shape or form. Like I'm not one of these people that if you talk to me before I have a cup of coffee in the morning, like, oh Jesus, don't talk to me, like I need to have my coffee before that's like, I've never been like that. And I don't even find that when I drink it, it gives me like this buzz. Like I've never felt it. Like, you know, like people get the jitters if
the
that.
rush.
I don't ever feel that. I just enjoy it as a drink, and you know, it's just even like at home, like the actual process of making a cup. Because I don't like, now that I've started using different type of equipment at home, it's like, you know, boiling the water and then leaving it settle and putting, you know, grinding up the coffee beans, and you know, it's like the process of it is a bit more interesting to me than just slugging back a cup of coffee because I need a hit of caffeine, kind of a thing. Like,
so definitely your perfect day would have a cup of coffee in it somewhere.
It would, but it doesn't necessarily need to be. You know what I mean? Like, I find that if I'm out and about, I do generally drink it because it's just like that. I like going into new coffee shops and seeing like the type of atmosphere and, you know, the way the staff are and little things like that. But yeah, I definitely don't see it as something I need. But I do like enjoy it. Clearly. I do love it. Yeah. Let's be honest about it. I love it. But yeah, I like that. I keep having to tell people that like message me like, I can easily go without this stuff if I have to. Yeah. It's just it kind of depends on my mood, you know.
Okay, I have a big question for you.
Ooh.
So I also noticed another magnificent quote on your Instagram: figure out who you are and go all in. And sitting here beside you, we can certainly see it in your expression in your face and feel your energy. You've got a big presence about you. Is traveling and drinking coffee and talking shite, is that you being all in your own life?
100%, yeah. Yeah, and I think it goes back to, I guess, when I started putting out stuff on Instagram back in Toronto, back in, I think it was September of 2017. Like that was the point where I met a couple of people who had similar interests in me, started going out doing photography and kind of doing the whole blogging, putting out content about men's fashion, that type of thing. That was kind of the start of it, kind of figuring out, right, this is something that I'm actually interested in. Before that, I wouldn't have said I had any kind of hobbies or anything that kind of, you know, I was doing outside of like work or college or whatever. So yeah, I think it was like moving to a new country, putting myself kind of in that tricky situation, because it is tricky when you move to a new country. And I guess that once you kind of get over that and set up a new life in Canada, Australia, America, or wherever it is, like there's a confidence that comes from that. And I guess then once you have that confidence, then you start putting yourself out there even more. And so I think, like traveling and moving outside of Ireland had a lot to do with like figuring out what I was interested in, what I was all about. And I guess you're never just about one thing. It's always going to change. And, you know, like 2 years ago, coffee was just coffee, but now it's actually part of my daily thing. Like it's a big part of my life in terms of like, I drink it every day. I'm mad about it. I consume all my content around it. So again, I think it's something that like evolves, but like traveling and putting yourself in a tricky situation is definitely kind of a good way to kind of figure out who you are and not necessarily just staying in your comfort zone, because I think you'll always probably stay the same if that's the case.
Yeah, that's something I've been thinking about recently. I'm kind of big into going to seminars and stuff like that, but on a recent trip I came home and said it was like going to a whole seminar. Like the experience I had in Africa, I feel like really changed me as a person.
Yeah.
So can you just, I know you've said some things already, but can you just elaborate a little bit on how travel can develop you as a person?
So I think the type of travel that I did for probably 3 years was basically like move to another country, set yourself up, get a job. So it wasn't so much traveling, but at the same time it was, because you're still living in a new country and moving around in that country. So I guess 2 years in Canada, a year in Australia, and then at the end of that year in Australia we did like 3 months around Southeast Asia. So it was pretty much backpacking, and I'd never really done backpacking before that. But I think it's just like, I guess in the 3 full years that I've been away, it's like the people that you meet. Like the people that you meet when you move outside of Ireland, they're generally people that there's not as many of us in Ireland. Like I think it's getting better here now. There's different cultures, there's different people moving from different parts of the world. And so I think you have a lot more of that now. But I think back, and especially I'm from Limerick, so you don't really have as many people. It's not as culturally diverse as it would be here in Dublin, for instance, where you can kind of tap into those different cultures and stuff like that. So I think for me, like the traveling is like, first of all, the people that you meet is the big thing, and then obviously just kind of like putting yourself outside your comfort zone when you travel, regardless of whether you're a backpacker or whether you move to a country and set yourself up, or even if you just kind of go to places you've never been before. I think it's meeting people, and it's just like pushing the boundaries of what you've done in the past. So I'm not sure if that answered your question, but I think that's what springs to mind when I think of travel, is like seeing stuff that you don't necessarily see wherever you're from or wherever your kind of your base is always going to be good, because it opens up your eyes, you know what I mean? Like 3 months in Southeast Asia is enough to open anyone's eyes, you know, because it's just mad. Like it's nothing like what we have here in Ireland, and it's just like you see it and you're like, I can't even believe I'm here, kind of a thing, you know. It's mental, and I'm sure you've seen it in South Africa and everywhere else that you've been. It is just mad, and it ultimately just opens your eyes. You come back to Ireland and you just appreciate stuff a lot more.
Yeah, so do you feel like in Southeast Asia you experienced such thing as a culture shock?
Yeah. So we started off like in Bali for 2 weeks, which was nice, but Bali is like very touristy, you know, so you don't really get to see a lot of the culture. I guess it depends on where you go. But like we went from there to Cambodia, and that was complete culture shock, because we went to Siem Reap, which is one of the 2 main cities in Cambodia, and like the streets there are basically like dirt roads. Like there's just people everywhere. There's traffic going everywhere. There's no rules of the road. There's live animals at the side of the street that you can pick out and have for your dinner. It was just like mad. Like you just never seen anything like it before. Like, and it was a culture shock, because like I'd never experienced anything like it, but like it was amazing at the same time.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that feeling, and I love how it completely opens your mind just to something completely different. Right, so can you just talk to me a little bit about self-care? Like what kind of rituals do you have in place? I noticed that you do a bit of running. Like what do you feel like is important? Do you ever meditate? Like what things do you do to keep yourself in check?
Yeah, so I don't meditate, but it's definitely something that I kind of am getting a little bit more interested in, because I see there's a lot more people now online that are doing it, and it's so easy to access that now, whether it's you're doing it yourself, whether it's like listening to the YouTube. I know there's lots of like YouTube videos and stuff like that you can listen to now. There's apps and stuff like that, so definitely something I'm probably interested in trying at some point in the future. But yeah, like I'm into running. Like it's just something that I find I can get out for half an hour, put in the headphones, just like have a think to myself, and just kind of block everything out, and you know, thinking about what I'm going to be doing in the next little while. You know, it can be like what do I want to do tomorrow? It can be like, where would I like to be in the next year? Or where is the next place I'd like to travel to? You know, it can be different things. But yeah, like running is a way that I kind of, I guess, take some time out for myself. other than that, I'm kind of mindful of like the content that I watch as well. Like I like to watch people that are like, when I watch them, like, oh yeah, that's interesting. That's something that's I'd like to kind of take on board as well. So your Gary Vee type characters, not all as kind of aggressive and in your face as he is, but like that type of a message, just positivity, building confidence, stuff like that. So I think that would probably be the main two ways that I kind of try and keep in check, but definitely like the meditation and stuff like that is probably something that I'm interested in kind of getting into, because I know people are raving about the benefits of it, and I'm sure probably I can gather that you're into it, so you can probably speak to that as well. But like, yeah, that's something that I probably will be trying.
Yeah, if you're a book reader, which you've said you are a number of times now at this stage, I did read a book back in 2014 myself. It was called Mindfulness, Finding Peace in a Frantic World, and there was an 8-week program within the book as you're reading through it, and I said, look here, I'll give this a go. It might give me a bit of like give me the ability to silence what was going on in my mind at the time or whatever. And I remember doing the program, didn't stick to it very strictly, but after the 8 weeks I really gathered the idea of, you know, taking space for yourself, you know, distracting yourself at least from what's going on in the outside world, and finding a little bit more peace for yourself. But that book I definitely might recommend if you're going to start that journey anytime soon. You know.
Yeah, I think it's quite good, like even with meditation or whatever it may be, we're just looking to access that point where we do kind of tune out from what's going on and get to a different space. So whatever medium people want to reach that through is perfect. Like I know I used to do Irish dancing a lot, and for me that was amazing. Some people do it through dance. You might get it through running. People can do it through playing tennis, whatever. But I like that the meditation is there for people if they really need it. But it all comes from a place of need, really, doesn't it?
It does indeed,
And I think that's just to add to that. Like I think the reason why I haven't done a lot of that type of spiritual stuff, or maybe the meditation, is that like I just find that like I'm pretty confident in myself, and like I don't let stuff get to me usually. Like very rare that I'm stressed about anything. Like I couldn't tell you how that it came to be, but it's just the way it is. So like I find like that, like running for me is great. Like it's the half an hour in the day that just like I kind of zone out from everything. But yeah, like there's definitely other ways to kind of tap into that, like you said, but I just find that I haven't had the need to, so to speak.
That's amazing. I love that.
Okay, so unfortunately, guys, we're running out of time. I've one last, maybe quick question for you before you go. I'm really curious. How did you come up with the name Ryan's Republic? Or why?
Yeah, so I changed that, I'm going to say a year and a bit ago. It was before I moved to Australia. And so before that, it was just my name, Ryan Morrissey, 93. And I was just like, that's just like just my name. There's nothing really, I didn't think it was catchy. So I was just like, I'm trying to come up with something. And I always like, I have no idea what the name for this thing is, but when you match like Ryan's Republic, it starts with 2 R's. It's just, I couldn't tell you what that's called. But I wanted to have 2 R's. I just think it's kind of catchy. So I was like trying to come up with ideas. Ryan's this, Ryan's that, Ryan's world, this type of thing. Ryan's bald head, balded. Like I was trying to think of what is my brand going to be about that I could kind of come up with some kind of name for that. And so like Ryan's Republic came up then, and I was thinking about it. I was like, what would that actually mean? And kind of when I thought about it more, I was like, it's kind of like my little world in a sense. It's kind of like me kind of talking about the things that I enjoy, whether that's fashion, travel, coffee, living in Dublin, positivity, whatever that is. I think that's kind of where the idea came from. And I wasn't sure about it, and then I said, "Fuck it, let's just go with it." Like it's kind of the best that I could come up with. And then it, like now that I've had it for a little while, I'm like, it kind of makes sense. Like I understand what it means. You know, when you look at it, you might think, what does that even mean? But like the way I thought it was that it's just kind of like my little place of, you know, like filled up with like content that I enjoy about stuff that I'm interested in. So
yeah, it's really catchy. And for me, I definitely think after meeting you today, it is representation of who you are. I feel like you're after claiming your own freedom to be who you are, fully expressed, and you're delivering all that through the coffee and travel and shy talking, but really bringing in the positivity. Aisling, is there anything else you want to say to Ryan before we close this off?
I'm just really happy. Thanks.
Yeah, and thank you for having me. I could go down in the history books here as being the first guest on this, soon to be famous podcast.
Absolutely,
So,
that's the plan.
Yeah.
Ryan, it's been an absolute pleasure, and what a perfect setting for this here in the Tea Gardens in Dublin. So listeners, I hope you have become a little bit more spiritually bulletproof and emotionally bulletproof by all that Ryan has delivered to us here today. That's all from us, PnP. Congratulations, well done. Pat yourself on the back. You're officially now a partner in positivity with us. If this is your first episode, we're so grateful. If this is your 40th episode, we're equally as grateful for your ears, for your heart, for taking this time out for yourself and committing to your own positive mental health journey. Our intention for this podcast is for you to feel a little bit better afterwards. So we hope you take some time now to check in with yourself. How did you feel before? How do you feel now? And we've definitely done our job if you feel a little bit better, and especially if you want to come back for more next week. If you do want to support us, we actually have a Ko-fi donation page. It's ko-fi.com/partners in positivity. We really value the work that we're doing. We know there's so much positive and negative in the world, and we want to contribute to people feeling their best. So we appreciate all of the donations we've had so far and welcome any more that are on the way. Thank you in advance. Also, if you got something of value from this and you want to share with friends or family to add to this trend of positivity in the world, we would love to be tagged in any posts on social media. You know where to find us. Other than that, guys, have an incredible week ahead, and we look forward to feeding you some more nourishment for that beautiful mind, that beautiful garden of yours next week.